situations, the idea is that it forces one of two things. It forces either the army of the Protoss player to retreat in order to deal with the counterattack, or it forces him to basically go into an all-in situation where his economy at home is getting wrecked and he has to kill his opponent. His opponent, on the other hand, will be defending as best he can in the safe knowledge that he is destroying his opponent almost inevitably. So again, White Wing's about to be moving out. I'm on 3 bases with 2.5 saturation. I've only got like 8 drones on my third. I've noticed that there is no third here at the 11-minute mark for my opponent, so I've basically been making units non-stop trying to get in position for this. I've got roach speed, +1 roach attack. Anything you wanted to add to that, White Wing?
Just that counterattacks, even if they don't force one of those 2 options, that is to say either a complete all-in or to complete retreat, will usually, at the very least, even if you misjudge how many units are involved with the counterattack or meet unanticipated defenses, will usually, at the very least, force resources that should be committed on the attack to the defense, resulting that even if he holds the counterattack without taking game-ending damage and without having to pull his whole army back, will still make the attack weaker. So committing those forces forward doesn't really weaken your position in almost any circumstance.
Cool deal. Well, I appreciate the insight. Let's unpause in 3, 2, 1, starting. And I see you coming out there, good sir. Alrighty, so I actually end up losing that battle, but even with that said, how effective was that counterattack, White Wing?
I mean, you did get my natural nexus. I had to spend a significant amount of my resources and warping time being one of the most important resources. A number of my warping cooldowns went to warping and zealots and stalkers at home to defend the roaches, because otherwise they'd lose both bases. And I mean, I did push in with a very, very potent attack that killed a ton of players at the end of Wings of Liberty. So not holding it isn't really all that shameful, but you did an absolute wreckage on my base. Right. And if this attack didn't succeed, I was completely dead.
Right, so just to kind of get some idea of how much damage it is, will you let these remaining roaches live when I unpause this so we can just establish the damage assessment?
Sure.
Appreciate it. 3, 2, 1. Not so much. Okay, let's just send in some new recruits.
Sorry, I just pulled out immediately.
I understand, it's not your fault. Overseer plus 3 roaches. Somehow 1 roach got left in my base. Weird. Anyways, sending in that Overseer now, and we're looking at damage assessment, guys. I cannot see a workers killed tab. How many extra workers do you have left over?
I had specifically stopped at max saturation on most optimal efficient situation on both bases, so I had 32 on minerals and 12 12 on gas on each base. So looks like I've got 9 left working on my natural out of the 24 that were there originally. I have all my workers still in my main.
Obviously, yes. Yes.
So you got looks like you got around 13. Looks like you got about 15 workers.
And bear in mind, guys, this is a diamond level player, myself, against a top masters level player training to be GM, using a very, very easy, simple tactic that anybody can do. And I haven't played Starcraft competitively in over 2 weeks. So if you add this into your game, the results will be devastating. If you'll remember in our last video, please, if you haven't checked that out already, click the link at the bottom, as it will be important to understand some of the techniques discussed there if you have questions about what we're talking about here. Anyways, we'll be showing you how to peel off units in order to attack multiple locations at once. We're going to do that with the roaches first, and then we're going to use 2 different unit types to spread the Protoss player very, very thin. This can be used against basically any race that has an immobile army, so like Terran Mech or Robo-Bay Protoss, that sort of thing. It's just a very, very effective tactic. White Wing, anything to say towards that end?
Splitting Protoss in multiple directions? Yeah, good way to kill a Protoss.
Awesome, awesome. Now, please, guys, bear in mind this is not like realistic scenario. This is representative of a stage in the game that usually happens after the first major engagement. You know, your Zerg was on like 3 bases, Protoss hits a timing attack or like a defensive 3 base, and there's a major engagement. Most of the tech is killed off from both players. The Protoss chooses to go for a massive robo army, and now our Zerg has chosen to go for a mobile Mutalisk tech switch, and that's what we're trying to represent here. You'll notice I have both roaches and Mutalisks. Without further ado, are you ready to get this started, White Wing?
I am.
Okay, so we're going to resume this, and then we're going to do this harass in 2 stages. First stage, we're going to show how to peel off roaches by having me attack your 4th base and your natural with my roaches split among 2 control groups. Again, we'll show the engagement and then back off, okay?
Yep.
Alright. 3, 2, 1, starting. Alright, so I'm right-clicking on this watchtower, and what I'll do is we'll wait for these Zergs to, these roaches, cocoons to hatch. Alright, get everything into a common location, and we're watching the mini-map as everything streams towards this base. Okay, so we're going to attack click towards the 4th, holding shift and clicking on, I don't know, I'd say like 12 roaches, and then right-clicking on the mini-map and going towards the natural with an attack move. We've now peeled off this segment of roaches, which we can box and macro. Now there's a lot of units here, so let's go ahead and pull this back. He's in a good position here, and we've got you know, these roaches actually doing a lot of damage to the cannons. He's getting a good warp in, but that's fine. Alright, let's go ahead and back up, please. Alrighty, and we'll just pull everything back. And in this next engagement, we're going to be showing a similar principle. It's not actually using the same units, though. You can actually bounce around quite a bit with your Mutalisks and pull the army of your opponent. You know, say they're defending the 3rd, as his was there. It was kind of positioned there between the 3rd and the natural. So what we're going to do is exploit the fact that he's positioned there by attacking our roaches into the natural and hitting his 4th with Mutalisks, and then bouncing around a little bit from there. You in position, bruh?
I'm right where my army was before, yeah.
Okay, cool deal. And here we go. And we're going to be careful here to only send in a small group of roaches. Alright, there's his army. And here we go. And here we go. We actually are getting a lot of kills here on both cannons and throats. And we actually see his army showing up, so we're going to pull the Mutalisks back out and run right on into the main where he's anticipated, and warping in some units here. But we're also attacking in the natural, and that's going to actually force a lot of his units back in, sending some roaches into his main, and then bringing our Mutalisks back into a good position. And as you guys can clearly see there, we have really successfully, harassed his probe lines, got a lot of workers killed. You probably don't know offhand exactly how much has been killed, do you?
It looks like I haven't lost too many probes, but more annoyingly, I did lose almost all my defensive cannons, which were there specifically to buy time for my army to catch back up to your army.
Right.
So that does force me to spend a lot of minerals rebuilding the cannons.
And if this were to continue, as you can see, I've still got my Mutalisks. The roaches will be easy to remax on. I've got plenty of minerals and gas to do so. Would you say this would eventually wear and tear you down?
It depends entirely on how cost effective you're being. If you're taking bases behind this and continually expanding, and I'm running in circles trying to defend and never have a chance to actually attack, then yeah, eventually you'll kill me because I'll never get a 5th base. So as long as you're careful defensively and never really leave me a huge opening, and you make use of the Mutalisk mobility while pressuring with the roaches to keep my stalker ball pinned, because I can't afford to pull all my stalkers away from my robo units, because if I do that, I lose all the robo units. You'll just swoop in with roaches and kill them.
Right.
So my whole army has to stay more or less together, which means the robo units are actually hindering my defensive mobility.
And not to get too race specific here, because this is applicable to Terran vs. Protoss as well.
Oh, it's even nastier when Terran does it, because Medevacs with speed boost and Marines do way more damage than they deserve.
Or how about Roach vs. Mech?
Roach vs. Mech is the best way to do it, because against Mech, he'll just tear your army to shred if you try to engage straight up.
Exactly. So basically the point we're trying to make here is that no matter what race you play, being able to be annoying with your units and having unit control to back it up, because bear in mind, I was not displaying macro here for the sake of clarity. You don't want me bouncing around shots completely all the time. So I'm not completely hitting all my injects, and probably couldn't do it even if I wanted to. But the point is, if you're good and you have the unit control and you can spread out your opponents, you're gonna win most of your games. Period. Anything else to finish this section up here, White Wing?
Yeah, just one thing. The most important part of these multi-pronged attacks is the fact that it takes a lot longer to defend them time-wise. If my army is not perfectly split defensively, and if it is defensively split, Brad, then I can't possibly be in a position to attack you. That time you get from pressuring in this way is what allows you to take a mid-game army, like a heavy roach army, which is very much a mid-game centric army, and transition into a higher tech like Infestors or Broodlords or Ultralisks. Ordinarily, if you just try to do one big attack with all these roaches into my army, and I concisively win that battle, which with the army I have now I would, you will not have time to remax on higher tech units, because I'll just move and attack and kill you.
Now,